Hello, everyone. On behalf of Syracuse University's Newhouse School of Public Communications, home of the Robin Toner Program in Political Reporting, welcome to the Toner Prizes celebration. I'm going to be your MC for the evening. My name is Asma Khalid. I'm a political correspondent at NPR. And thank you. And as you all might be able to tell, I have a lingering cold, so please bear with me. Thankfully, we have a microphone. I will say, though, that there are many dinners in this town that I sometimes feel like a fish out of water, and you don't necessarily mind canceling. But I thought there's no way I can skip out on tonight's dinner because it's a real honor and privilege to be asked to MC an event that celebrates so many of my colleagues' tremendous political reporting. So I hope that we'll get a chance to do that tonight. This event and this program honor Robin Toner, the first woman to hold the position of chief national political correspondent for the New York Times. Her elegant writing and relentless, meticulous reporting graced the pages of the Times for nearly 25 years. Robin's work framed the conversation around some of the country's biggest political and policy issues. She wrote with authority, but always with the context of the implications of the average middle-class voter. The Toner Prizes honor that legacy. They honor the work of political reporters across all platforms and mediums who respect facts and enlighten their audiences. Political reporters who engage the public in democracy and who understand that fact-based reporting keeps us connected and better informed. Tonight, we'll hear from Syracuse University leaders. We'll hear from Robin's husband, Peter Gosselin, and his family's special guest, Cecile Richards. We'll hear from our keynote speaker, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, and of course, we'll recognize some of the very best political coverage of the past year. For now, please enjoy your dinner and enjoy the conversations at your respective tables. I'll be back in about a half hour to kick things off. Thank you. Hi, folks. I am back. If I can just encourage you all to please take a seat. Thank you. I really appreciate this applause just for me coming up and trying to gather people's attention. What? Thanks so much. So once again, welcome to the Toner Prizes celebration. I want to take a few moments now to share a little bit more about Robin Toner and the history of the Toner program. Robin graduated summa cum laude from Syracuse University in 1976 with dual degrees in journalism from Newhouse and political science from the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs. She began her journalism career with the Charleston Daily Mail and later reported for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution before moving to the New York Times. After her death, the Newhouse School established the Robin Toner Program in Political Reporting to honor her legacy and keep alive the flame of fact-based political coverage. In particular, I should know not to boom bounce my mics. In particular, we must thank Syracuse alumnus and former Board of Trustees Chair John Chappell of Hawkeye Investments, who was a friend of Robin's at Syracuse. John helped underwrite the launch of the Toner program in 2009, and he has supported the program ever since. Having been part of the telecommunications revolution, John had a keen understanding of the impact that technology might have on the media landscape when the program launched 15 years ago. Challenges continue to face our industry, and in the light of those challenges, the Toner Prizes emphasize the importance of fact-based political reporting and the vital role it continues to play in our democracy. We are so grateful to John for all of his support of the Toner Prizes. I also want to take a moment to thank the key sponsors for tonight's event for their support of the Robin Toner program and its mission, including, of course, Hawkeye Investments, the New York Times, the Knight Foundation, Bloomberg, the Washington Post, Syracuse University, and the Toner Gosselin family. And now it's my great honor to introduce one of the driving forces behind tonight's event, Peter Gosselin.
Thank you, thank you. We're here tonight to celebrate the great political reporting so many of you in this room have done. Political reporters are often accused of being addicted to the horse race. And if you're honest, most of you, perhaps even political reporting giants like Maggie Haberman or Dan Boltz or Peter Baker, will admit to a horse race story or two. But great political reporting requires so much more as well. The fast turnaround perspective, the revealing profile, the investigative project, the issue piece that treads the border between politics and policy. A lot of the issue pieces this coming election, maybe the majority, will be about reproductive rights. Our family's guest tonight knows a good deal about that issue. Robin Toner, wrote about reproductive rights. Her friend Karen Tumulty said that she brought to that debate a rare sensitivity and nuance. I think that's because, as a Catholic and a mother, she had sympathy for those who opposed abortion. She didn't agree with where they'd come out, but she accepted that most got there honestly. The world has changed since Robin. Roe has fallen. Nearly half the states have some form of an abortion ban. There could soon be a federal one. One thing hasn't changed, and that's strong women willing to tackle the issue. Robin was one of them. So is our family's guest, Cecile Richards. Whether organizing nursing home workers, helping her mother, Ann Richards, become governor of Texas, staffing Nancy Pelosi, or dramatically expanding the membership and power of Planned Parenthood, she has fought for economic justice and women's right to choose. And perhaps the most immediate tribute to her strength is this: hair shorter, her own diagnosis to face. She's here tonight, and she's still fighting. Cecile Richards.
Thank you, thank you. I remember that hairdo. I'm grateful to everyone here. Thank you, Peter. I know this event is a labor of love, and I'm so honored to be part of it. I also want to acknowledge my daughter, Lily Adams, who has gotten me through these last 9 months in an amazing way. So thank you, Lily. Thanks to Asma and Provost Ritter, Dean Lodato, Margaret Taleb, the Newhouse School, and Syracuse University for supporting the future of communications. And thank you, Governor Cooper. Can we just give a hand to the man who has done so much to support women? You supported women in North Carolina and across the country, and we really thank you for your courage. So we're here tonight, obviously, to celebrate the work of Robin Toner. I crossed paths with Robin when I was at Planned Parenthood, and as Peter said, she approached abortion the way she approached every political issue, with boundless compassion and matched only by her appreciation for facts and evidence. And that approach was informed by her own experiences. As a mother of twins, we had that in common, as a reporter who began her career in the South, and as the first woman to lead the Times political coverage. And whether, yes, let's give it up for that. Whether she was writing about the fight for healthcare reform or covering an up-and-coming state senator from Illinois who really, he seemed like he might be going someplace, she never lost sight of the story, sight of the people at the center of the story. She would be so proud of tonight's honorees who understand, as she did, that politics is about more than the last debate or campaign ad. It's about people's lives. In her book, Hope in the Dark, Rebecca Solnit wrote, "Every conflict is in part a battle over the story we tell, or who tells it and who is heard." The consolidation of news outlets, the decline of local newspapers, and the shuttering of women's media platforms has made it much harder to cover every issue, but it is particularly devastating for coverage of issues that affect women's lives. Since last summer, I have been focused on understanding and documenting the lived experiences of people in the 14 states and counting that have banned abortion, including my home state of Texas. I just got back from Louisiana, actually last week, where I met a young woman named Caitlin Joshua from Baton Rouge. In August of 2022, just after Roe was overturned, Caitlin experienced a miscarriage. She was bleeding, she was scared and in pain, but she was turned away from not one, but 2 emergency rooms in Baton Rouge. Doctors told her that because of Louisiana's abortion ban, they could not treat her. So without medical support, she returned home and miscarried while her husband took care of their toddler in the other room. Now, a few months later, Caitlin's twin sister heard that one of the hospitals that had turned her away was holding a public meeting and encouraging the public to attend, and she decided to go and tell of her experience. Now, as most of these things go, the meeting was sparsely attended, but Rosemary Westwood, a New Orleans-based reporter, came and wrote about it and Caitlin's story for NPR. When the story went up, Caitlin's phone blew up, flooded with messages from others who have been denied care or had had to travel hundreds of miles to get an abortion. Now, if Rosemary hadn't been there, that what happened to Caitlin might have been lost to history. But because she was, and because she has the support and the skills and the resources from her editor and an outlet to cover the story, it became national news. Caitlin now says she feels called to fix the crisis in her state, and if anyone can, she can. Because all the stories we're hearing about heartbreak and injustice, there are stories of inspiring people fighting to change the situation in their communities. Apologies. I'm recovering from a brain tumor, so sometimes I lose my words. Ida B. Wells said, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. It's important because overturning Roe isn't like the Titanic hitting the iceberg. This is a story, this is not a one-time event. The ship is still sinking every day. Practically overnight, an entire generation lost their opportunity to determine their futures and themselves, to determine their futures for themselves. And it is disproportionately affecting women of color, people with low incomes, and communities where healthcare is too often already a luxury. Now, this shouldn't be a political story, but it is because politicians have made it so by taking away the rights of more than half the country, and it's time for accountability. So, to all of the editors and executives here tonight, please support reporters in telling these stories. There's an audience for them, desperate for smart, timely journalism about the loss of abortion rights is having not only on patients, but the impact it's having on everything from where students are choosing to go to college to where healthcare med students are doing their residencies, and it's affecting whether people in rural America even have a doctor to see. And to the reporters who are covering these issues, when you're fighting for another column inch or for a story that you know is urgent and important, only to be told that women are a niche audience, or that reporting on gender belongs more in the style section than on politics, I know it can feel like you're fighting the same battles that Robin did, and that it hasn't gotten any easier. But we are here tonight because Robin's work mattered, and so does yours. This is too important to give up. The stakes are too high. We need you too much. So thank you for all that you do. The world is watching, and we're cheering you on. Thank you.
Cecile, thank you. Mark Lodato came to Syracuse and to the Newhouse School of Public Communications from an incredibly entrepreneurial Cronkite school at an even more incredibly entrepreneurial Arizona State University. He brought to his role as dean an instinct to experiment, innovate, and move quickly that has reinvigorated Newhouse. Here are just a few of his accomplishments in the first 4 years, years that if you think back on, were not exactly the easiest during which to assume leadership. He's built or improved professional partnerships with BuzzFeed and Edelman and ESPN, PBS, and other industry leaders. He's bolstered technology training to ensure Newhouse students are tech-ready at graduation. He has helped expand Newhouse's and Syracuse's reach beyond the campus, indeed up and down the East Coast, in ventures, some of which you'll hear more about tonight. And his 16 years as a television reporter and anchor here in Washington, in San Francisco, Phoenix, and elsewhere have assured that these efforts are grounded in solid journalistic principles. And they have fed the dean's strong commitment to find ways for Newhouse to foster civil discourse and teach responsible use of emerging technologies. Dean Lodato.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that kind introduction, and thank you to you and your family for your tireless efforts in making this a special night each year that truly honors Robin's legacy. And I want to thank Asma Khalid for serving as our Master of Ceremonies tonight. She is, of course, one of NPR's trusted voices from Washington. Thank you for your dedication to creating a deeper understanding for your listeners through balanced, fact-based reporting. I would also like to take a moment and thank and welcome my friend and colleague, Dean David Van Slyke of the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs, for being here tonight, along with members of his team, and of course our own Beverly Kirk, the director of our Newhouse DC program. As dean of a premier, I like to say the premier, communications school in the country, I am keenly aware of the challenges facing journalism: financial pressures, polls showing an erosion of public trust, and most recently, navigating the responsible use of artificial intelligence. Before moving into higher education, as Peter mentioned, I was a journalist myself, spending more than 15 years in broadcast newsrooms around the country. I covered City Hall, the state capitol, Congress, and at once in a while, the White House. I've served as a judge for the Toner Prizes, so I know full well about the effort and dedication it takes to produce the award-winning work that we are honoring here tonight. It's that work and the work of the finalists and other journalists gathered here that takes on even more significance at this moment in time as we collectively address the issues confronting our industry. There will always be a place for quality, fact-based journalism. That takes long hours reporting, writing, shooting, and editing. That takes perspective. That takes the talent of boiling down complicated topics into ways that readers and viewers can easily understand. Those skills stand the test of time. I want to take a moment now to pass along a message from someone else who holds your work in high regard. Vice President Kamala Harris could not be here tonight, but took the time to send a note, which I have here with me, and I have the privilege of reading the Vice President's message. She says, quote, "I'm honored to extend my warmest greetings to the distinguished guests gathered for the Robin Toner Prize's celebration for excellence in political reporting. Today, we take the time to honor the legacy of Robin Toner, the first woman to serve as chief political correspondent for the New York Times, and recognize her lasting impact on our country. Her commitment to integrity makes her a role model for our nation's next generation of journalists. To all of the editors, reporters, and journalists gathered today, I am grateful to each of you for using your platform to maintain excellence in political journalism and convey stories with truth and earnest conviction. Thank you for your dedication, care, and longstanding commitment to transparency in the political process. Your work reflects the high standards and depth of reporting that define Robin Toner's legacy. Thank you again for all that you do for our country and our democracy. As you continue to uphold the tenets of integrity and truth, I am confident that you will inspire generations to come." End quote. I cannot echo enough how much your work sets an example for aspiring journalists. Some of them are sitting with you today. Now, I'm going to boast for a moment about the students from the Newhouse School. I can confidently tell you as dean that they possess the talent and drive to be the White House correspondents, campaign reporters, and award-winning journalists of the future. And if you haven't yet, I would hope you take a moment to meet them and the equally gifted students from the Maxwell School before this night is over. Their collective optimism inspires us all at the university. And now I have the honor of introducing our next speaker, the Vice Chancellor, Provost, and Chief Academic Officer of Syracuse University, Gretchen Ritter. Provost Ritter is a leader in the history of women's constitutional rights and contemporary issues related to democracy and citizenship in American politics. We are so grateful at Syracuse University to have her expertise and leadership in this critical space. So please join me in welcoming Provost Gretchen Ritter.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone, for being here to help us honor the Toner Prizes and the important work that they honor. Here I stand in a room full of journalists. Some people might find that intimidating, but I find it inspiring. Just as I find the work of this year's Toner Prize winners inspiring. I am not a journalist, but as a constitutional scholar who studies democracy, citizenship, and American politics, I have deep appreciation for the watchdog role of the Fourth Estate. Seriously, I am someone who spends time every day listening to NPR, reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other great journals and newspapers. I am in awe of the work that you do and completely grateful. So thank you. We know that journalism is vital to the health of our democracy and our society. But increasingly, unfortunately, some of our fellow citizens seem to have lost sight of that. Dean Lodato recounted some of the problems we face today, including the erosion of public trust in media. And we know that these things come hand in hand with the deterioration of civil discourse, a widening political divide, and an alarming proliferation of dis- and misinformation. These are steep challenges that we need to take seriously. As a university that is home to the country's leading schools of communications and public affairs, Syracuse is compelled to help our society face these challenges head-on. We're doing that in part through the university's Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, located here in DC. This joint initiative of the Newhouse and Maxwell schools is a hub for evidence-based, nonpartisan research, teaching, and experiential learning. With capable leadership from Kramer director Margaret Telev, who is with us here tonight, the Institute is already doing good work, including funding research on misinformation and focus groups with key voting blocks in battleground states, which are being conducted in partnership with NBC News. These things benefit our society. They also benefit our students, who gain incredible hands-on learning opportunities. Hundreds of Syracuse students come to DC every semester to study and intern. You can meet some of them here tonight. And as we continue to expand our presence in DC, we look forward with excitement to the opening of our new space later this spring. Now, let me introduce tonight's keynote speaker, Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina. Governor Cooper was first elected in 2016 and is now in his second term. He is a native North Carolinian who worked on his family's farm before earning undergraduate and law degrees at Chapel Hill. His decades-long career in politics has included 4 terms as State Attorney General in service in the North Carolina State House and State Senate, where he served as Majority Leader. As governor, he is focused on bolstering the quality of life for the residents of his state by creating new jobs, strengthening public education, revitalizing rural communities, and addressing the climate crisis. On behalf of Syracuse University, I thank him for being here with us at the Toner Prize celebration. Please join me in welcoming Governor Roy Cooper.
Well, thank you very much, Provost Ritter. I'm a sports nut, and close your ears if you don't want to hear it, if you're keeping up with Syracuse women, but they're down by 4 with a minute and a half to play against UConn. So it looks like a great game going on. So I am not offended if you glance at your phone. I get it, okay? I get it. And Gretchen, do not let them take my plate away, please, because I'm not finished. It is a great experience for me tonight to be here to honor the best of the best in political reporting. Congratulations to the winners as well as all of the nominees. It was interesting to get a chance to meet a few of you and learn more about your work a little earlier, and look forward to talking to more of you a little later. I didn't personally know Robin Toner, but I know the trail that she blazed as the first woman to be national political correspondent for the New York Times. And I know her peers and colleagues applauded her exquisite ability to translate Beltway speak into language that was real and readable for everyday Americans. Sorry. To see her legacy live on through her children and through this prize is really a beautiful gift, not only for her family, but for all of us. So Peter, to you and the family, thank you so much for doing this and for inviting me here tonight. It was a real honor for that. And thank you to the Newhouse School at Syracuse University. I am a University of North Carolina Tar Heel, also known for our School of Media and Journalism and basketball. But we're going to leave basketball out of it. No trash talking at the Toner Prize dinner. But if you want to see me afterward, we can talk a little trash. Yeah. And Cecile, what an honor to be with you tonight. Extraordinary courage. I am personally, truly in awe of your resilience and your unending commitment to women's health, which we know is at risk because of the attacks on women's reproductive freedom. In North Carolina, we fought so many battles together, arm in arm, and we are stronger for your leadership as we stare down our biggest battles yet for women's control over their own bodies. So thank you very much again. So I thought about my message for a captive audience of national political reporters with the times heavy and the stakes high. And I couldn't help but think of that great philosopher, Seinfeld's Frank Costanza at Festivus. I got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about them. Just kidding. Sort of. There won't be any airing of grievances tonight, as is Festivus. And I'm certainly not here to give a lecture on journalism, but maybe a few suggestions. As much as elected officials may eye you with some apprehension, I'm grateful for the work you're doing every day, not just to inform the public and ensure accountability, but to preserve our democracy, that First Amendment. So many interviews and discussions you have these days often come back around to the state of our democracy. The concern that our democracy is on the line right now, that's embedded in much of your work as in mine these days. That our democracy itself could crumble feels at once too improbable to happen and yet too real to ignore. So we find ourselves, your profession and mine, at an existential moment. With all the lies and the bombast out there, we simply cannot lose sight of why we do this. Why people like me run for office and serve. Why you stay up nights wearing out your keyboards to let people know what's happening. And our missions really aren't so different. How do we confront the demons that threaten democracy without losing sight of the very real challenges that everyday people face? I believe I have an answer, at least one of them, for those of us on both sides of the notepad. And that answer is listening for what is important and taking action on what we've heard. As a Democrat who twice won North Carolina at the same time Donald Trump did, I'm often asked, how'd you do it? What's the playbook? What's the secret? What's the special sauce? If I actually knew all of the ingredients in that recipe, I'd be bottling it and giving it to every Democratic candidate in the swing states. But at least part of the answer, I don't think is that complicated. It's listening for what's important and taking action on what you've heard. Elected officials and candidates are good at telling people what their problems are and what the solution should be, and it usually ends up with vote for me. But if we are to be effective and to earn their votes, we have to hear the questions and complaints before we decide the strategy to tackle them. I'll give you a real-life example for me. In North Carolina, we have a Republican majority legislature, and Republican state legislators had dug in for a decade blocking Medicaid expansion. To prevent a Democratic governor like me from doing it, they actually made it illegal to expand Medicaid without their permission. When I tried anyway, they sued me. Our local Capitol Press Corps declared that because Republicans controlled the legislature, Medicaid expansion wasn't going to happen. Because in the bubble, Republican legislators told them so. What our leaders say is news, but it's not the whole story. I began traveling around the state to see how people really felt about this. I went to rural areas represented by Republicans who strongly opposed Medicaid expansion. And I listened. And what I heard was Republican county commissioners complaining that their rural hospitals were closing. I heard small business owners who were unable to afford health insurance for their employees. I heard from doctors and healthcare providers who were struggling to treat indigent patients. I heard from tough-on-crime Republican sheriffs who told me how much time deputies were spending dealing with people with mental health problems and substance use disorder, and that so many people in their overcrowded jails that even the sheriffs knew that these people needed health care and not handcuffs. And so all of that listening led to a strategy. We assembled a unique, non-traditional, bipartisan coalition of North Carolinians to persuade their own legislators. We marshaled this brigade together to fight for Medicaid expansion. You know how the scene in sports movies go where the ragtag bunch stuns everybody with their come-from-behind win? Well, that was us. And you know what? Just like in the movies, it worked. In the end, Republican legislators could not ignore their own constituents. The small business leaders, the county commissioners, the local doctors, the sheriffs back home. We got the endorsement of the North Carolina Sheriff's Association and the North Carolina Police Chiefs Association. So December the 1st, 2023 was maybe my best day as governor. That's the day Medicaid expansion went live in North Carolina. And I'll admit, with tears in my eyes and hers, I got to hand a brand new health insurance card to a woman named Penny Weingard, a cancer survivor with a powerful story of courage, with no health care and crushing medical debt. I thought, this is why I ran for governor, for hundreds of thousands of people like Penny. And to paraphrase Robin Toner, after the Clinton healthcare plan had failed, she said, after the shouting is over, healthcare has a way of reasserting itself. That's what happened with Medicaid expansion in North Carolina. So listening and acting on what you hear is good policy and good politics. But we know it's more to it than that. I know you often hear, Twitter isn't real life. You hear it from our people. And really, neither are the political barbs and partisan back and forth of the day. In too many ways, extreme partisan politics can isolate politicians and the media from the communities that they serve. It makes it hard for us to distinguish between reality and noise. Now, I've engaged in my share of the partisan back and forth for sure. But as a governor, I've found progress by building bipartisan coalitions outside of the bubble, not only with Medicaid expansion, but with carbon emission reduction, clean energy jobs, paid parental leave, economic development, and more. We succeed on issues that matter to real people when we break through that bubble, fighting all the while to deflect false narratives and misinformation, and believing that people really do want action that will improve their lives. But breaking through the bubble and the noise the bubble creates is hard and getting harder. That's where the work that you do as political journalists is more challenging and important than ever. In today's news environment, how do you cover the noise and still pay attention to those issues that everyday people care about? Especially in a place like North Carolina, where the recently nominated Republican slate of candidates is about as shockingly loud as you can get. Since our primary elections earlier this month, the National Political Press Corps has become acquainted with the most extreme right-wing Republican ticket in the country, maybe ever. I'm sure you either know about it or have written about it. Here's the North Carolina Republican lineup, quarterbacked by Donald Trump. A candidate for governor who denies the Holocaust, demeans the LGBTQ+ community, says men should lead and not women, advocates for no abortions and no exceptions, and says he owns an AR-15 to shoot government officials when they get too big for their britches. A candidate for attorney general who wrote the notorious bathroom bill that brought so much harm and shame to our state and is now a staunch member of the U.S. House Gates, Taylor Greene, Boebert cabal. And a candidate for superintendent of public schools who homeschools all of her children and took them to the Capitol on January 6th, calls our public schools socialist indoctrination centers, believes teachers should have guns in the classroom, and has called for the execution of high-profile elected officials, including yours truly. The calls for violence, the hatred, the us versus them mentality is shocking even by today's standards. It demands your attention and your coverage, but it can't stop there. It has to run deeper because nearly 10 years after Donald Trump's takeover of the Republican Party, our country's outrage scale has been recalibrated to the point that Republicans are nominating so many of these extremists, and some of them are actually being elected. And as they scheme to top each other and themselves with louder noise, we need the fourth estate to cover that circus, but to also employ the impacts of their policies on everyday people. One of Robin Toner's superpowers. I get it that for journalists, these criticisms can somehow ring hollow from an elected official from the other party. But we've reached a pivotal moment where coverage of American politics is evolving. I think it's clear that many of the extreme candidates and elected officials desperately want their latest indecency to get the headlines instead of the policy changes that they bring, like the impacts of their tax breaks for the wealthy on middle-class people in schools and roads and bridges, or the so-called election security laws that mask schemes to suppress the vote, or the consequences of their climate change denialism and our healthy environment and the future of our planet, or the women harmed by putting the long arm of government that they otherwise hate in the exam room with women and their doctors. And a big red flag showing that they want to hide the impacts of their policies. Look no further than the North Carolina Legislative Republicans, who have just won the Black Hole Award from the Society of Professional Journalists for exempting themselves from the public records law, which I wrote, by the way, when I was in the state legislature. At the same time they are hiding their own public records, They changed the law to allow them to use the threat of criminal prosecution in their threat to get other people's records. Okay. For those of us in the three branches and those of you in the fourth, I ask again, how do we confront the demons that threaten our democracy without losing sight of the people's everyday lives? This is hard stuff, but I have hope. I have hope that we will find ways to listen for what's important and take action on what we've heard. We can keep open minds. We can allow people to challenge our assumptions, and we can push our comfort zones. We can and we will find solutions. We can find the truth, and we can abide by it faithfully. Thank you very much for having me here tonight, and thank you for listening.
Thank you again to Governor Roy Cooper for those remarks. So I'm just readjusting this down to my head, but thank you very much. It is now time for, I think, the big highlight of tonight, which I know so many of you all are looking forward to, and that is the time to hand out tonight's awards. Since launching in 2009, the Toner Prizes have grown into one of the most prestigious recognitions of political journalism in the country. That is in large part because of support from news organizations, including Robin's home paper, the New York Times, as well as the Washington Post, Bloomberg, Politico, CNN, and others. 3 prizes will be awarded tonight. 1 for excellence in national political reporting, 1 for excellence in local political reporting, and an honorable mention for local political reporting. Entries are judged on how well they reflect the high standards and depth of reporting that marked Robin's work herself. And now, to announce our winners, I'd like to introduce Margaret Talev, the Kramer Director of Syracuse University's Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship. She will take it away.
God, that picture's so big. Oh, God. It is great to see all of you here tonight. Thank you all for being here. Before we go any further, and sorry, they had no notice of this, I'd really like to introduce the room to our students. 10 of my students from both the Newhouse and Maxwell schools who are based in DC here this semester, studying media literacy and civic engagement, and several additional journalism students who traveled from Syracuse this afternoon, literally dropped their bags while the Uber was waiting. We ran to the Capitol. We did a tour of the Senate Press Gallery. They got back in the car, changed their clothes, and greeted all of you. So sorry to call you out, but could all 15 of you please stand? And could someone take a pano, please, because I need a photo of all of this for our newsletter tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank all of you guys for being here. We're counting on you to save us from ourselves after all of us are done. I'd also like to acknowledge Governor Cooper, Asma Khalid. Thank you, Asma. I know you have battled personal allergy challenges and the political calendar to be here. We really appreciate it. Governor Cooper, Asma Khalid, Peter Goslin, Cecile Richards, Syracuse University's great leadership, and of course, all of the awesome reporters and editors who are here with us tonight. As you know, our institution is nonpartisan, but it is our tradition to invite Republican and Democratic leaders in alternating years to say everything on your mind, but also, and always most importantly, no matter what party you're from, our speakers always are here to deliver the same message regardless of your party, and that is to acknowledge and recognize fact-based political reporting. And so with that, let's get on to the heart of the evening, the awards. Political reporters like Asma and all of you are the workhorses of American journalism, particularly in election years. We know you've put your personal lives on hold, You're putting your sleep deprivation skills to good use to make sure that voters have the facts that they need about the leaders who are in power and the candidates who are asking to lead. I've worn your shoes, not heels, preferably sneakers or cowboy boots, and you have my deepest gratitude for what you do. Political reporting, as has been mentioned by many others, is not really about the horse race. It doesn't stop with what the polls say. To really do the job, you need deep reporting, you need to be on the ground, you need to use investigative skills and fact-based analysis. And the work is not always sexy, and it's not always heralded, but making it sexy for one night is what the Toner Awards are all about. So, by the way, I have one more person to call out. The first winner of the Toner Prize almost 15 years ago, I am told, is here tonight, Craig Harris, then of the Arizona Republic, now the editor-in-chief of the Coronado News. Craig, could you stand? Awesome. Okay, on to the prizes. This year, in addition to our local and national prizers, our judges have chosen to bestow an honorable mention for a powerful local political investigation. I'm going to try not to screw this up, but I didn't do a practice run, so I apologize in advance if I do. First, the finalists for the Toner Prize for Excellence in Local Political Reporting are, drum roll, these are the finalists, the Coronado News for your series Promises, Promises, Mississippi Today for Governor Tate Reeves' donors and contract recipients, The City for Straw Donors, Ethics Violations Plague Eric Adams' campaign fundraising efforts, there's a mouthful, the Texas Tribune for far-right extremists in the Texas Republican Party, and the Miami Herald for Shakedown City, the Philadelphia Inquirer for the race for Philadelphia's 100th mayor, the staff of WBEZ Chicago and the Chicago Sun-Times for Chicago mayoral election 2023. Now, the honorable mention for local political reporting goes to, I forgot to bring an envelope, The City, George Joseph, Bianca Pilaro, Heidi Chu, Tom Robbins, Yoav Gonen, April Shu, and Katie Honan. Could you guys please come to the stage?
Thank you. On behalf of our team, we're deeply honored and grateful for this recognition. This was the result of months of hard work and a strong team effort led by our editors, Richard Kim, Martin Gottlieb, and Alyssa Katz. To bring this story to light, we dedicated countless hours analyzing thousands of campaign finance data records. We embarked on extensive efforts to uncover finance reports through dozens of FOIA requests and spent months knocking on doors gathering insights. We partnered with Documented, which was key in our joint efforts to source individuals in the Chinese community. This collaboration was essential to bring this investigation to audiences the city wouldn't have been able to reach on its own. Documented is unique in its coverage in 4 languages, bridging the gap between New York City's vibrant immigrant communities. Our in-depth reporting broke new ground, raising disturbing questions about the integrity of Eric Adams' fundraising efforts and exposing the perverse incentives created by the city's public matching funds program. We hope this investigative series, which we continue to work on, sends a clear signal to New Yorkers. To ensure the vitality of local news, we rely on your support.
I'd like to take a moment to thank my editors at Documented, Max Siegelbaum and Clarissa Leon, as well as the support of our newsroom. Your dedication to serving immigrant communities ensures that their voices are amplified and vital information reaches them. And for everyone here tonight, or everyone who is going to watch the video of this ceremony, if you can, subscribe to your local newsroom, The City, Documented, or any newsroom that continues to do the work to keep powerful people in check. We couldn't have done this without the support from our readers and donors, and we hope to keep doing this for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom and Dad, for everything. Thank you.
Congratulations again to the city. Next, I'd like to announce the winners of the Toner Prize for Excellence in Local Political Reporting. And the prize goes to the Philadelphia Inquirer, Anna Orso, Sean Walsh, Julia Taruso, Asim Shukla, and Layla Jones. Please join us.
Ah, yes, a room of hundreds of people waiting for us to speak. Every local newspaper reporter's dream. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Orso. This is my colleague, Sean Walsh. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. Thank you to Syracuse University, to the Toner Prize judges. We are really, really honored to be here. Congratulations to all of our fellow finalists. Congrats to the city once again. Your work was incredible. And we're really inspired by each and every one of you. So in the lead up to the 2023 mayoral election in Philadelphia, the city was really in a time of crisis. Surging gun violence had claimed a record number of lives, 1,000 people in less than 2 years. We were emerging from the tumult of the pandemic. The city was still healing from civil unrest. And a majority of residents thought the city was heading in the wrong direction. At the same time, the former mayor had seemingly checked out. He even said so himself. But the city was on the cusp of a shift in leadership. And at the Inquirer, we were dedicated to covering the race to become the city's next mayor, with the issues really at the forefront. It's why one of our first big stories about the campaign looked at the role that gun violence would play and why it was a key theme throughout our reporting through the cycle.
Gun violence was the major issue of the 2023 election, but to understand any election in Philadelphia, you have to know the tribes, as a former Inquirer reporter, Jeff Shields, told me once. And that's another reason why it's important to have a strong local newspaper in a place like Philadelphia. It's a really complicated place. It can be parochial and Byzantine. We love it. I'm allowed to say that, I promise. And, you know, the local political arena is made up of kind of a constellation of political organizations that get passed down, you know, from elected official to elected official. And to understand what that means, you have to be there day in and day out reporting on the city, and we're grateful to have the resources at the Inquirer to be able to keep track of all that. And the Northwest Coalition, one of those factions in Philadelphia, is a storied black political machine that for decades has been challenging, you know, the white status quo in City Hall in Philadelphia. It was the Northwest Coalition that produced the 100th mayor and also Philadelphia's first female mayor who won this race, Sherelle Parker. And if none of this faction stuff makes sense to you, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. And we were grateful to be able to communicate the best we could about all of that during this election. And that's why you need a good local newspaper.
We're lucky to be at the Inquirer, where we have a well-resourced newsroom that was able to do big and new things. In addition to the classic beat reporting that Sean and I anchored, we had data reporter Asim Shukla, who teamed up with writer Julia Taruso, who has a really deep understanding of voting trends within the city. She also, like Donovan McNabb, came to Philadelphia via Syracuse. They teamed up to deliver robust analyses of voting trends within the city. We also had, more than a dozen reporters like our colleague Layla Jones, who fanned out across the city and were able to talk to voters about the issues that really matter to them. And this was all supported by an absolutely stellar editing team, overseen by Laura McChrystal, who's with us here tonight. Thank you, Laura.
So to be a little bit of a downer, 2023 was the first mayoral election in at least modern Philadelphia history in which there was only one daily newspaper. And I'm a former Philadelphia Daily News reporter, which was the tabloid, which still kind of exists, but not really. And from that perspective, I just want to say that although we're proud to have done the work we did, it's a scary time for local journalism. And competition makes us better, and we don't have that anymore. And it's an incredible loss for this city. And yeah, back to you.
So we'll leave you with this. If you're one of the people who are sitting in this room, and I know you're here, you subscribe to the New York Times, but not your local newspaper, we ask you to reconsider. Please support your local news organization. We are the chroniclers of our communities, the first line of defense against misinformation, and a key pillar of our democracy. Thank you for this incredible honor.
Congratulations again to the team from Philly. There was one more VIP delegation in our audience. I think I waited just a hair too late because they're rushing for a flight, but I wanted to thank our friends from the Council of Europe, a delegation led by the Deputy Secretary General, for being with us tonight. You know, challenges to democracy and journalism and civic engagement are not just a challenge in the United States, they're a challenge around the world. We're really pleased to have a partnership and a relationship with folks who are doing the hard work across the pond. So. And now, the Toner Prize for Excellence in National Political Reporting. Our finalists are ProPublica for Friends of the Court, the Washington Post for Ottawa County, the New York Times for A New Conversation About American Politics. By the way, you don't have to cancel your subscription to the New York Times. Keep your subscription to the New York Times, and then also spring for at least one local newspaper. Okay, good. Just to clarify. I know that's what our friends from Philly meant. The Center for Public Integrity for High Courts, High Stakes, the New York Times, again, for Alone and Exploited, and NPR for How the Far Right Tore Apart One of the Best Tools to Fight Voter Fraud. And now, the Toner Prize for Excellence in National Political Reporting goes to Greg Jaffe and Patrick Marley from the Washington Post.
When we went to Ottawa County, we didn't plan to be there for a year initially. We went for a single story before the 2022 election. Greg had found that there was a Republican county clerk there who was doing forums about the elections, how they could be trusted, how they were transparent, and how they should know that they were fair. This clerk was having difficulty selling that message in his county. On the same night that he had one of his forums, there was a much larger event in another part of the county where there were some insurgent Republicans who were gathering. And they had a very different view of the county and the future it should take. They wanted to reshape government at the federal, state, and local level. And they made plans to take over the county board. And they had doubts about the 2020 election, even though Republicans had won in their county. So we arrived in Ottawa County at a moment of a dramatic shift. Traditional Republicans had long run the county, but these newcomers to politics didn't think that they were conservative enough, and they made plans to make change. They mounted primary challenges and soon took over the county. We realized that major change was likely to happen soon, and we decided we should spend more time in Ottawa County, not just to understand what was happening there, but to see how what was happening there would illuminate what was going on in the rest of America. This new board did not take long to act boldly. On its first day in power, it fired the county administrator, it fired the top attorney for the county, it ended its diversity program, it changed the slogan of the county from Ottawa County, where you belong, to Ottawa County, where freedom rings. And it took the first steps to sideline the health director for the county. The meetings that the county would have had a public forum where people could speak, and citizens came out and spoke for hours at a time. And it was as if they lived in two different Americas, two different Ottawa counties. One group of speakers would praise the commissioners and tell them that they were setting the county back on the right path to what God and the Founding Fathers intended. The other group of citizens would tell them that they were tearing the community apart and pitting neighbor against neighbor. At these meetings, they would talk about big issues. They would talk about what it meant to be a good citizen, what it meant to be a good Christian, what the proper role of government is. What they didn't talk about very often was the routine business of county government, how often roads should be plowed, what the parks should look like, what the, how much taxes they should impose. I'll let Greg pick it up from here.
Yeah, and with each trip back, I think with each trip back to the county, we began to see trends that helped us understand the rest of the country a little bit better. It quickly became clear to us that even though the pandemic was over, the mistrust in neighbors, in government, in our institutions that had sown was still with us. We were still very much living with the pandemic or the aftermath of that pandemic, which had undermined trust in governments, in schools, in the media, in churches. I think most of all, it had undermined trust in neighbors. People stopped trusting their neighbor and were accusing their neighbors of the craziest things. We saw big fights over things like gender identity, sexuality, race, and diversity consumed the sort of normal business of this county. And I think this distrust became a huge barrier just to sort of everyday reporting for all of us. 6 of the 11 county commissioners don't talk to the media at all. In fact, they'd formed their own media organization called Simply America, which is sort of Pravda on Lake Michigan, to get their own message out. We worked around this the best we could, and I think it did force us to become a little creative. Patrick went to church services where some of the county commissioners went, so we could hear what they were hearing on Sunday. I tracked down the family members of some of the commissioners just to understand the kind of milieu in which they grew up. Some of them were estranged from their family. They'd fought over COVID and other things, and so that was really helpful. We read the books that they read. They were big fans of a book called The Doctrine of Lesser Magistrates by a far-right pastor named Mac Truella. So we made it our business to read what they read. And we talked to the 5 commissioners who would talk to us, and we're really thankful for the enormous amounts of time that they spent with us. Lastly, and this is an important theme, we relied a lot on the help of local news organizations in Ottawa County, particularly the Holland Sentinel, which is a tiny staff, but just did miraculous work over the course of the year. And you should, if you live in Michigan, subscribe to the Holland Sentinel. The Fox News station, the local Fox affiliate in Grand Rapids, did fantastic work, as did the Grand Rapids paper. So we really relied a lot on them. And the last thing I wanted to say is, I spent a lot of time covering the federal government, and I'm always impressed by the federal bureaucrats, the civil servants who work in the Pentagon and the State Department throughout. The local government officials in Ottawa County, the bureaucrats who ran the health department, who did sewer and water inspections. They're so passionate about their jobs and about their community. They're so smart and they're so dedicated. And I came away with a huge respect for them and what they do.
We want to congratulate the other finalists at the national and local level. We're very grateful for this award, and we have many people to thank. Thank you to the Newhouse School and the Toner family for recognizing our work and for their long-term commitment to political journalism. I'd like to thank Greg, who led this project and really saw ways that we could talk about and write about Ottawa County that would resonate with readers across America. Thanks to Griff Whitty, our editor, who oversaw this project and gave us sage advice throughout the year. Thank you also to Matea Gold and Phil Rucker, Peter Walston and Rosalind Helderman, Christine Wen and Jenna Johnson, who also helped edit and greatly supported this project. And lastly, we want to thank our families. My wife Denise and Greg's wife Christy have been our biggest champions. Thank you.
Congrats again to the Washington Post. I forgot to thank maybe some of the most important people in this room tonight, and that is the judges who read through an amazing, amazing collection of submissions and entries and did the really hard work. So thank you, judges, for the Toner Prize. Kicking it back to Asma now. Take it away.
Congratulations to all of the finalists and the winners. It's really just an incredible body of work as you were looking through everything that was nominated. I just want to give a few closing remarks to wrap up the night and begin by first thanking our sponsors again and Robin's extended family, many of whom are here tonight: Gretchen Toner, Jane and Terry McConnell, Mark and Mimi Toner, Casey and Sasha McConnell. And thanks to all of you who join us year in and year out to honor this incredible journalism, and of course to the institutions that support them. And finally, thank you to Syracuse University. Thank you, of course, to the many students here tonight. We hope that you all are inspired by the terrific journalism that we saw tonight. I think I was, of course, certainly inspired, but we're also, as Margaret said, inspired by so many of you who are willing to embark on this journey and in this profession at a time when it does seem so very uncertain. We are, of course, also inspired by the legacy of Robin's decorated career, and we're eager to see you all lead the way and chart the future for a future of civic discourse and fact-based journalism. That's a wrap for tonight. Please enjoy your trip home. We look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you all.